rather than saying that nothing could be done to oppose undisciplined behavior of EMD members, the majority found that, in fact, nothing was done or even attempted to be done, in particular in connection with the alleged violations of international humanitarian law during the detention of enemy soldiers and civilians by the EMD. In this regard, the majority recalled that foreign members of the EMD had been subject to criminal proceedings in some instances of illegal behavior, although not for violations of international humanitarian law. In the majority's view, this confirms that the superior commanders did have the material ability to prevent and or punish crimes committed by the EMD. For the foregoing reasons, which are spelled out more in detail in the written judgment, the majority, Judge Moloto dissenting, found beyond reasonable doubt that Rasim Delić had effective control over the EMD in the period from July to December 1995. Consequently, the majority was satisfied that a superior subordinate relationship had existed between Rasim Delić and the EMD perpetrators of the crimes committed in July, August, September 1995, as charged in the indictment. Judge Moloto, in his dissenting opinion, held the view that Rasim Delić did not have effective control over the EMD at any time from the time of his assumption of duties as the commander of the main staff of the ABiH on the 8th of June 1993 until the EMD was disbanded in December 1995. He noted that the EMD throughout 1995 erratically complied with the ABiH orders and made its participation in combat contingent on certain requirements. The EMD carried out the tasks given by the ABiH only when it chose to do so. The evidence shows that the issuing of ABiH orders was preceded by quote-unquote agreement with the EMD. And in Judge Moloto's view, this was inconsistent with the system of command and control. Judge Moloto also noted that the majority seemed to draw Rasim Delic's effective control from the fact that he did not take measures against the EMD while he could do so. He respectfully held that Rasim Delic's inaction only confirmed, in light of the totality of the evidence, the absence of his effective control. To this end, he recalled that despite the fact that the ABiH on some occasions took investigative steps against EMD members, all attempts to punish the EMD members for their criminal behavior inevitably failed. Therefore, Judge Moloto respectfully submitted that the majority failed to show in practice that Rasim Delić had the material ability to punish members of the EMD. The majority will now turn to the issue whether Rasim Delić had knowledge or had reason to know that the crimes of murder and cruel treatment were about to be or had been committed by members of the EMD between July and September 1995. As regards the crimes committed in Livade and the Kamenica Camp in July and August 1995, the evidence shows that information concerning the capture of the VRS soldiers by the EMD in July 1995 was reported to the Main Staff Security Administration. These reports formed the basis for Bulletin 137, which was sent to the KM Kakai on the 22nd of July 1995, with the instruction to forward it to Rasim Delić. The bulletin informed Rasim Delić that VRS detainees were held by the EMD and that they did not allow anyone access to these detainees. However, it did not make any reference to crimes committed by EMD members against the detainees. The majority was not satisfied that Rasim Delić had knowledge of the crimes in July and August 1995, as there is no evidence, either direct or circumstantial, from which to infer that Rasim Delić was actually aware that EMD members were about to commit or had committed such crimes. The majority will therefore tend to the issue whether Rasim Delić had reason to know, namely, whether he had information available that was sufficiently alarming to put him on notice of the risk that crimes might be committed by the subordinates. The majority recalled that the jurisprudence of the tribunal requires that to establish knowledge of a superior, the relevant information only needs to have been provided or available to the superior or in his possession. It is not required that a commander actually acquainted himself with the information. For reasons detailed in the judgment, the majority was satisfied that the information contained in Bulletin 137 had been conveyed to Rasim Delić. The next question is whether Rasim Delić had additional information which would qualify the report on the capture of VRS detainees contained in Bulletin 137 as sufficiently alarming. In this regard, the majority examined whether Rasim Delić had knowledge of subordinates' past offenses and if he had failed to punish them. It therefore took into account 1, the crimes in Bikoshi in 1993, 2, the killing of a humanitarian worker in 1994, and 3, other instances which show the general propensity of EMD members to commit crimes. In relation to the crimes in Bikoshi, the evidence shows that in October 1993, Rasim Delić initiated an investigation into the alleged execution of a group of Croats by Mujahedin after he was requested to do so by President Izetbegović. As a result of the investigation, Rasim Delić was informed that 25 Bosnian Croat civilians died in combat activities around the 8th of June 1993. The prosecution contends that the investigation was not, quote, real, unquote, and that Rasim Delić was in any way personally informed of the crimes by one of his deputies in early summer 1993. The majority dismissed the prosecution's contention and noted that no substantiated claims regarding the killings had been brought to the attention of Rasim Delić after the investigation. In addition, even assuming that the allegations raised by the deputy would have called into question the reliability of the investigation, the information available to Rasim Delić indicated that the perpetrators of the crimes in question were the Mujahedin and did not allow for the conclusion that they were the men who later formed the EMD. It follows that his failure to conduct further inquiries into the allegations raised in 1993 cannot be considered as an indicator that Rasim Delić had sufficiently alarming information that future similar crimes could be committed by the EMD in 1995, more than 2 years after the Bikoshi events. The majority then examined whether the alleged killing of Paul Goodall, a British humanitarian worker, by members of the EMD would provide Rasim Delić with sufficiently alarming information. In early 1994, a joint military-civilian force arrested 3 suspects, 2 of whom were identified as members of the EMD. The majority took into account the fact that Rasim Delić had been aware that adequate measures had been taken to punish the perpetrators and that no subsequent incidents of murder by EMD members had been reported to him in the following 16 months. These circumstances, in the majority's view, militate against his reason to know that similar crimes would be committed in July and August 1995 by the same group of subordinates. The majority also examined other instances in which Rasim Delić had been informed via bulletins sent by the Security Administration of incidents of misconduct involving EMD members, some of which amounted to criminal offenses, including physical assaults. The majority was of the view that these incidents had called for further inquiry on the part of Rasim Delić, in particular with a view to preventing the commission of war crimes by EMD members. The majority was therefore satisfied that the EMD's record of misdemeanors and criminal offenses had constituted information which would qualify the report on the capture of enemy soldiers in Bulletin 137 as sufficiently alarming to justify his immediate intervention to determine whether the EMD was about to commit or had committed crimes in July and August 1995. In failing to conduct any inquiry, Rasim Delić accepted the risk of the commission of those crimes.